Hello and welcome. This is Aaron Eggman with Character Formation Coaching, a Christian mind-body transformational coaching technique. This is the series I call Catalyze, Catalyzing Change, Deep Character Growth, session 4. And the session 4 is called the 1, 2, 3 of empathy, the 1, 2, 3s of empathy. So this is review. What are the 3 ingredients of an ideal growing environment? So just like last week, we talked about grace, truth, and time. Quick summary, grace in Catalyze looks like getting curious, open, accepting, and loving towards vulnerability, both internally, relationally, but then also towards God. When we're reading scriptures and it's also not thinking that we know God, but being curious, open, accepting, and loving towards who He is. Also in relationship towards other people, and then also internally towards parts of ourselves. Truth being brutal honesty in reality. And then time, making sure that people are given the right amount of time that they need in order to grow. All right, so let's talk about some high grace relational nutrients, because we talked about we want to have a high grace, high truth culture. And so there's 22 relational needs. You can, those 22 relational needs can be, they're available online, or you can email me at characterformationcoaching at gmail.com for me to send you all 4 quadrants of the 22 relational needs. So feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to send those to you. These are from Dr. Townsend. And from the book People Fuel, so you can also get those in the book. And so quadrant 1 needs are high grace needs, and they're like acceptance, connect without judgment. Now, acceptance is hard to understand because it's an experience, and so when we say the word acceptance, it doesn't really hold very much weight, especially just in our culture today. When we say acceptance, we don't really know what that means. So high grace, high truth, acceptance means that you know exactly where someone's at, or the emotions that they're feeling, or the negative reality that they're in, and you like them, and you accept them, and you choose them, and you want to be with them. And so it's both verbally and non-verbally. I like to think about like the woman at the well, like the woman at the well who Jesus accepted her, even though she had 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 5 previous husbands, and the one that she was with was not currently her husband. He still accepted her. And so the acceptance isn't necessarily in what he said, other than him like saying, I know you've had 5 husbands, and the one that you're with is not currently your husband. But then it was also how he was with her. He chose to reveal himself as Messiah to her, like he chose her. It's like, I know who you are. I know you're an adulteress. I know that you have five husbands. I know that the one that you're with is currently not. You're living in current sexual immorality. And I love you, and I'm choosing you, and I'm revealing myself to you, and I accept you. And so, again, what would his eyes look like? How would his body posture be? What would the nonverbals of Jesus be? What would you see? Would you see love and compassion in his eyes? And so acceptance is very much of a felt experiential encounter with unconditional love and acceptance in a very felt way. At that point, you feel accepted. Attunement is another word for attunement is empathy. Attunement means like coming in sync with another person. So if another person's feeling one way, you allow yourself to get in touch with that same feeling inside, and you mirror it back. So attunement can be thought of as mirroring back what someone's feeling, or even helping them to go a little bit deeper in what they're feeling. So maybe they don't even know what they're feeling, but you can sense it, and so you help them go a little bit deeper into what they're feeling. Another idea, we're going to be watching a video from Brene Brown about getting into the well. So keep this in mind, what attunement is, when you're watching the video that's coming up in the, later on in the session. Validation is conveying that a person's experience is significant and not to be dismissed. It's like it actually happened. When a kid grows up with a parent who what's called gaslighting, which means they think something happens, but the parent denies that it actually happened. Like for instance, I had a grandma. She's not alive anymore, but during my father's upbringing, like there were some really difficult things, like she would beat him. But later on in life, when he would talk to her about her beating him, she'd be like, "I never did that." And so it's like, if that happened his whole life, he might think he's crazy, thinking that he's remembering something that didn't actually happen. And so validation is the exact opposite. And it's saying like that what you're saying is important, like what you have to say is important. You're significant. It's not to be dismissed. And that validation can often sound like you make sense. And what we have to understand is that everyone makes sense. If we understood their past, if we understood what was coming up, what emotions was coming up, and what neural network that was on, the thoughts, the emotions, the memories associated with that, what was coming up, every person would make sense. And so validation, we can totally disagree with the person and still validate their world, because again, if we understood, it would make sense. Identification is to share a similar story. So again, you want to keep identification about 30 seconds or less. Otherwise, it becomes about you rather than staying with the person who's sharing. And identification, you're just able to, I really find identification to be much more powerful when you're going through it in the present moment, not necessarily when you're talking about something you went through in the past. And then it's like, now you're no longer there, and they're there now, but you're not anymore. I don't find that super helpful, but I do find like if there's something that is active and alive, just being able to join with a person and just to know the feeling, or to be able to identify with it. Containment is like allowing big emotions, allowing anger, fear, some of these emotions that we demonize in the church, or pride even. We demonize that, but allowing these emotions and just staying with the person and letting them feel the emotion as it is, not trying to change it. And so when a baby is growing up and say that they start to feel angry, a good parent will attune to the anger and just hold the anger and let the baby just dropped a toy on the ground, and now the baby's really angry because it wants the toy, but it's on the ground. A good parent might mirror back something like, "Yeah, you're really angry. Like, you want that toy and it's on the ground, and man, you really want it." Just to like really like help the baby to be like, "Okay, like you're right, I do, but it's not that big of a deal." That safety, that containment really helps to be able to know that anger isn't catastrophic, it doesn't damage relationships, it's not that big of a deal. Like it can be felt. And so when you contain, or when someone contains you, they hold your emotion so that you can digest it, that you can feel and deal with it. It's like you can't feel and deal with it alone. So when someone's able to hold that and to like be okay with your big emotions, strong emotions, then you're able to feel it and deal with it, and it's not such a big deal. Comfort, especially comfort, is much more of an experience than it is like we experience comfort, and comfort happens after we feel and deal with something we could not feel and deal with before. So we haven't been able to feel and deal with something, we are able to feel and deal with something, then we experience comfort. And so comfort is an experience of feeling comforted. All right, so this movie talks about empathy, which also could be thought of as the relational need of attunement. So this is what attunement looks like, and you'll notice how the bear ends up getting in touch with the emotion that the fox is feeling, and he attunes. He comes into synchrony. He like if a musical instrument, you're trying to tune a guitar or something, then you'll you'll just get it just right. And so it's like the bear is coming into synchrony, or coming into the right pitch with the fox, or attuned to the fox.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Hebrews 4:15-16. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weakness. Let us approach the throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Notice here, empathize with our weakness. Christ was tempted in every way. He knows it. He knows what it's like to be in our shoes. He knows he experienced the gamut of emotions. He felt anger. He felt fear. He felt anger. Think about it. When it says he saw the house of God being turned into a den of robbers. He felt fear when people picked up stones and were ready to kill him. And he just, again, fear meaning I'm in danger, and the adaptive action tendency of fear is to get to safety. So he felt the alarm, and because of that, he ended up disappearing. So they couldn't stone him. And so, anger says, I don't like what's happening, and the adaptive action tendency is to push back. So now I wanted to teach a very simple way of doing what I'm talking about, giving a high grace response, a high truth and high grace, because high truth because you're allowing where the person's at, and you're not letting your own stuff get in the way of and distracting from the conversation that the person wants to have, or from going to the places the person wants to go. And so the 1, 2, 3s of empathy is adapted, or sometimes called safe conversations, or there's a couples therapy called Imago Dialogue by Harville Hendricks and Helen LaKelly Hunt. And so this is adapted from that. the 3 steps, the 1 is mirror, the 2 is validate, and the 3 is empathize. And so let's go ahead and go over what that could sound like or what that could be like. And so again, if you really knew me, that's just for the, if we were doing an activity, that could be a prompt. You could have many different prompts. Often you can just start by saying like, is now a good time? And in this type of dialogue, one person's sharing, the sender, he's sending a message or sending something he wants to share, and one person is a receiver, and that person's job is to hear and to understand, or to mirror, to validate, to empathize with the person sending the message. So they're going to be called the receiver. So in the beginning, the sender goes up to the receiver and says, is now a good time? And you want to make sure that if you're going to have this kind of depth of conversation, it's really good to invite this conversation. And so if both parties know this style of conversations, then it works really well, because then the person understands that you're wanting to initiate a 1, 2, 3s of empathy conversation. And so if the person says yes, great. If the person says no, then you can say, okay, well, let's schedule a time. When would be better? And then set a future time. And so then when you do meet, the sender can say something, start sharing what they want to share, such as, today was a really hard day for me. All right, so there's the message. The message is sent. Today was a really hard day for me. And you can just kind of short chunks. You send short chunks over. So then the receiver will use the 1, 2, 3s of empathy to really make sure that they get to the depth, today was a hard day for me. There's a lot to unpack there. What do you mean hard? There's a whole bunch of potential for that conversation. And so by mirroring means just reflect back what they said. So I'm hearing you say that it was a hard day for you. Is there more? Just something simple, short, sweet, mirroring it back, what they're saying, especially mirroring back emotions is really good. Sounds like it was a hard day. Something where it's you just reflect back as close to what they say as possible, or reflecting back the emotions that they're sharing, and just you reflect that back in a short, sweet statement. And so if the sender says, today was a really hard day for me, and the receiver says, sounds like it was a hard day, then the person sharing, or is there more? Or even just silence and expectation that the person's going to talk works. And so then the other person would be like, yeah, I just, I felt blank. So now you've gotten an emotion. And so whatever the emotion is, you can reflect it back. Yeah, you felt blank. Then again, is there more? Or just making space. Then the person will begin to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into what they're sharing. And as they go deeper and deeper and deeper into what they're sharing, often they can make connections and really begin to understand what's really happening inside. Because often when someone wants to share something like it's a hard day for me, it's like, in other words, there's something coming up for me that I don't really understand. I don't know how to feel and deal with, and they're coming to you to connect with you, to be able to help, to be able to themselves be able to process what's actually happening inside. And so by mirroring, you're just a safe container where you're just really helping them to go deeper into what they really want to share. And so you just keep going in this method until you get to is there more? And they say, no, there's no more. Then you can validate. You make sense. And what makes sense to me is blank. And so that validation there is really a big deal, because there's a sense of relief when you are validated. And again, everyone makes sense, even if you disagree with the person or don't understand their logic, or you can reflect back that you make sense, and what makes sense is blank. And that's a pretty big deal. And then empathize is, I imagine you might be feeling, and really try to guess, put yourself in their shoes, and then guess what emotions they might be feeling. And often this is again where the attunement comes in, or the empathy comes in. It's like allowing yourself to put yourself in their situation. What kind of emotions do you think they might be feeling? And when the person kind of hears your attempt at that, they can say, no, that's not it. What I felt was this. Now they're again in touch, and they're able to feel and deal with what they weren't able to feel and deal with before. And so, or they're more connected. And is that what you're feeling? And then just keep, again, mirroring back what you're hearing and making sure you're getting it right. And then, again, is there more? Just keep continuing that mirroring throughout, even when you're validating and when you're empathizing, just making sure you're staying with them. And again, this style of conversation is amazing because so often when someone's talking, we're like not really listening to them. We're kind of, stuff is coming up inside of us. And so what's coming up inside of us distracts us. And so then we bring up a story from our own life. So what this conversation and this style does is it lets one person share something from beginning to end. And it helps them to go from being disconnected from what they're feeling into facing and feeling it with you. And then that will result in them feeling connected and really being able to understand what they're feeling inside, or what's causing it, or what's coming up from their past, pain that's coming up from their past, or they're really just able to kind of connect it and make more sense of what's going on inside. And so it's a very powerful way, and it builds like boundaries where one person shares and we're staying with them. This is about them. And then at the end of such a conversation, the sender would say, thanks for listening. And then the receiver would say, you're welcome. Or thanks for sharing. And so that will bring it to a nice close. And then you want to swap positions and be able to, if the other person wants to share too, just to make sure that everyone, because things will come up in the conversation. And so often after you share, letting the other person process what came up for them, but this is now about them. This isn't about you. And so instead of getting sucked into each other's emotional worlds where we're like unable to untangle the emotions between two people, in this way, we stay with one person, and although we're feeling emotions and stuff might be coming up for us, we're staying with the sender. And so it really is a very powerful way. And especially, I know in my marriage, when I started to implement this, because I really did not know how to listen. I did not know how to show empathy. And learning this tool of communication helped me to be able to listen to my wife in such a way that she felt heard, she felt comforted, she felt loved. It was a huge turning point in my own marriage. So in summary, the 1, 2, 3s of empathy provide safety to explore weaknesses and character deficiencies. It invites, welcomes, and accepts wherever the person wants to go, such as emotions or overwhelming thoughts, memories. It undoes what is not good, which is aloneness. God said it's not good for man to be alone. So the person, aloneness or disconnection being the root cause of character deficiencies, this undoes that. And it really addresses the root of what's happening at a deep level, and then transformational change can occur because it's addressing the root. It invites all person into relationship, and it validates reality. And all of these things are massive in transformational change. 2 Corinthians 1, 3 through 4 says, praise be to God, our Father, Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the Lord of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the same comfort that we ourselves receive from God. This is like a life verse of mine, and it really, it shows the need for us to receive comfort by God through relationships. Again, because we comfort others with the same comfort we ourselves receive from God. So it's like we're comforted when we're comforted by God, and that often comes through relationships. And then so as we receive that comfort, then we can offer that comfort again, relationally, God's comfort again to somebody else. And so it's this cycle of receiving comfort, the comfort of God in relationship, offering the comfort of God in relationship. And we can comfort others with the same comfort that we have received, which is also an important concept here. We also have difficulties feeling empathy for a person when we are not able to feel and deal with an emotion inside of ourselves. So if we judge anger as bad, we are not able to, or we're not able to stay with anger in other people. So it's important to do our own work so that we're able to stay with others in the future. So, and again, God does comfort with relationships, such as Paul said, God comforted us by the coming of Titus. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this was super helpful, and feel free to email me, characterformationcoaching at gmail.com. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the future. If you would like to have some examples of the 1, 2, 3 for empathy, feel free to type in Safe Conversations or Imago Dialogue, and then just watch a couple of YouTube videos and see that done. All right, thank you.